Hello everyone, PinkPWNAGE here. This video is going to teach you how to exert pressure on your enemy so you do not get charged, particularly by top players. When you're playing at the highest level against the best players in the world, the Population 1 really feels like a chess game. And it's hard to explain, but the best real-life situation I can think of is boxing. One of the biggest complaints about boxing is that it looks like most of the time they're just standing there, right? Well, if you don't really understand boxing, it really does look like they're just standing there. But what's actually happening in each of these boxers' heads is this mental chess that they're doing. Okay, if I'm going to throw this punch, what is he going to do? Okay, last time he did that punch, he hit me with this. And so they're doing all these calculations, all the assessments in their head. And they're not just throwing 100 punches straight and, willy-nilly out there because they're going to get hit. They're going to get knocked down. They're going to be exposed, right? And it's very similar for Population 1. If it's a one-on-one, the person that's charging the enemy has to consider all these same kind of factors. They do a risk assessment as well. So in high-level Population 1 play, particularly in the tournament scene, you really see players play a lot more strategically, okay? The players that people complain about charging in like public games, right? These people play really strategically and they play really carefully. So it looks like they're standing there, just like this boxing scenario, before they throw the punches, right? But that's because they're doing the calculations to put themselves in the best point to win. What this whole presentation is going to be about is understanding the concept of pressure, because that's what you're going to have to do for to be able to get to this level of play where it is like a chess match, okay? And the second learning objective we're going to go over is the skills you need to put out pressure. So why do you get charged, okay? Have you wondered why you get charged? Well, yes, the person probably outskills you. That's obvious, right? But we're going beyond that, okay? Here is the reason why you're getting charged, okay? It's all about respect. If the enemy, let's say a top level player, charges you, it's because they did a threat risk assessment in their head, and that assessment told them, okay, it's not that bad. I've got this. I'm confident in my skills and my plan to do this, so I'm just going to charge and do this to win. And most of the time, if they're a best in the world kind of player or top player, they know how to execute that plan. They really thought about well to win, and that's why they come out of that situation on top most of the time, right? So it's all about respect. You have to put out enough threat to make that top player conduct their threat risk assessment differently so that they don't charge you, right? And so you have to put out more threat to balance their confidence, all right? So it's really about earning their respect. This slide breaks up what a threat risk assessment would look like, okay? Well, what the player is balancing in their mind is the movement style of the enemy. It's funny, and this might be a little confusing, the movement style. Well, a good player can always tell who another really good player is, okay? Just by how they're moving, okay? It's kind of like the fly peek method I always talk about. If you see a player flying, peeking very safely and moving really fast, for example, but carefully, like, you're going to think twice about charging them because you go, okay, that person might be an actual skilled player. People do this. This is a real thing. So ground walkers, do not exhibit like a lot of threat, okay? If I see someone ground walking, in the open, in the middle of the plains, for example, I know, okay, that person clearly is probably a newer player. He's going to die because no one walks in the open on foot with no hard cover around them, for example. So movement style, and this is just something you got to work on, right? Moving from hard cover to hard cover, knowing when it's not good to walk in the open. Movement style, very important, something you need to work on. Much too much for this video to cover, obviously. But know that a good player can tell whether or not you are a good player just based on where you position yourself and how you move. Teammate killed, number of enemies, those kind of intermingle. The teammate killed was really focused on, did someone else on the team charge you and die? And then that's going to earn the respect of the other players the enemy players on that team, okay? So number of enemies is different because it's really focused on Like, okay, am I going to 1v3 or am I going to 1v2, right? Like, should I do that? You know, like, and so that's what the number of enemies is. That's pretty obvious, right? But where we get down to the less obvious is pressure, and that's where we're going to spend most of our time. So what is pressure? So like I was saying, in the boxing match, at the top level, you don't see a lot of punches thrown because they're so good that it's really about controlled aggression, okay? And I want you to think about that term, controlled aggression. I want you to solidify that in your mind because that's what I even tell myself when I'm playing like tournament style games, okay? Controlled aggression, controlled aggression. Don't just fly out there. Don't just throw 20 punches because I'm going to get tired, for example, and I'm going to get punched. What is pressure? Well, pressure is making enemies feel as if they are not safe, okay? So it comes back to this boxing scenario where these boxers are standing against each other. If you're not aware, the left person is Floyd Mayweather, the greatest of all time, literally, in boxing. Undefeated in professional career, defeated a lot of champions as well, and made them look kind of foolish, honestly. And so on the right is Manny Pacquiao, legend, probably the second greatest of all time, in all seriousness. And I waited 20 years for these people to fight, maybe 15 years for these people to fight, and they finally did. Pacquiao, if you don't know, on the right, the boxer on the right, his style was almost pure aggro, like pure aggression. Like he was that kind of person that charged all the time. Mayweather was not. And when they fought, he controlled that that style that Pacquiao was exerting. Pacquiao didn't just go out there and throw, massive amounts of punches at Mayweather because Mayweather made him pay. So it was really exciting for me to watch that fight because I understand boxing. So when they fought, it was really like an interesting chess match. And so this is just a good example for PopOne. When those pub players, those pub smashers, that go around flying around pubs, getting a lot of kills, when they come to tournament style, all of a sudden they get rocked and they come in and go, whoa, I got to do something different. And then they're going to play, really differently. So now we're going to talk about how to exert pressure, okay? And we're going to spend a little bit on this one. Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Poke while not being poked. And we're back at a boxing example because honestly it's easier to show this in boxing than it is in a PopOne game from a first person view. So what I'm trying to tell you here is before you get into the close range battle in PopOne where the DTs come out and the rapid fire weapons, there's usually this long range kind of fight. And I'm going to do a whole another video on this kind of meta fighting. If you have a Sako or an Op and you hit that enemy, what is the first thing they do? They go back behind hard cover or they build a few walls and they start shielding, right? Or eating some health or something. Put on pressure by poking them while not being poked. And that's why snipers are so important. You can put on pressure at a distance while, staying very far away safely, right? Now, the problem is this really should be efficient poking, okay? Because if you have an Op, a Sako, and you shoot 10 shots and you miss 10 shots, what is the enemy going to do? Oh, this enemy has horrible aim or they just can't hit me. I'm just going to keep charging, right? So it's not just about trying to poke and just missing a few shots. You really have to be efficient with your shots. Like if you hit 2 for 2 shots sniping on your enemy, they're gonna be like, holy crap, this guy's really good at hitting their shots, I gotta chill. And they're gonna wait for their teammates maybe to make a move, right? You have to put out so good poke that you make the enemy rethink their life. This is just something you have to work on. There's no one way to do this. This could be one example of how I do this is I might have a Sako, I'm peeking behind a building, hard cover, I hit the enemy who was trying to charge me, in the body for like 60 to 70 damage, and then I retreat to the side out to another piece of hard cover so that if they charge that building, I poke them again. Okay, so I'm moving, I'm rotating while staying under cover safely. I don't just fly in the open. I fly safely to another hard cover. I peek again, poke them again. Okay, and so they go, okay, I'm not charging this guy anymore, not without a whole team or something because I just took 2 pokes and I didn't even do any damage, right? That is how you poke while not being poked. You have to poke, evade, not get hit, it doesn't, if you're standing there and you get your op shot, you get one op shot, but then the enemy team did 180 damage to you. You only got 20 health. Well, guess what? You lost that pressure war. Okay, they put out way more pressure than you, right? But if you're hitting, like each of those 3 enemies for once and you took only 20 damage, then you have more pressure on them. So I want you to think about pressure as this like kind of like a wall that's being pushed from both sides. If you are pushing better on your side, then you're going to exert enough pressure for them to rethink charging you. However, if the pressure's way on their side, like they're pushing that pressure wall towards you, then and it's getting farther and farther, they're just going to keep charging. Okay, you have to put enough pressure to rethink their strategy. It's really important for me to mention that the snipers are, yes, a good way to put out pressure, but at the highest level, honestly, it's really, really hard to hit those kind of players, like the best in the world players, with Sockos and Ops, okay, snipers. So unless your skills with an Op and a Sock are like top notch, and I mean like you can catch a best in the world player from flying from one hard cover to another piece of hard cover while that player is building while they're flying, if you can get that half a second shot when they are open on them, by all means, go for it. Use a Socko or an Op. Okay, it's not that easy though in practice. Really, the best way to get a shot on someone is to shoot them while they're not, noticing you, and that's usually better with an Op on the top level players. Okay, and that's usually why you see people do that 3, 2, 1 fire, where you do a countdown and 2 teammates fire on the enemy to get as much damage as you can, or all 3. Because once the person notices you and they're a good player, good luck hitting them again, because they're just going to prop down behind some hard cover with some build. Okay, so if I'm recommending another weapon or a set of weapons to put pressure on your enemies, and you're not the same skill level as the enemy, I would honestly say an AK or an M60 or P90 would do you the trick, because it's a lot easier to aim and hit, do what you need to do with those weapons than the Sock or the Op, which don't have a lot of leeway, because if you miss a shot, you're screwed. Okay. Let's just put a slide with all 4 of these methods, and this is not the only ways, right? There's many other, but these are the 4 big ones I could think of off the top of my head. We already covered number 1. Number 2 is covering and suppressive fire. Okay, and we are going to spend a lot of time on that one in the next several slides on how to stop a charge, more specifically. And then peeking, right? You heard me mention peeking, but peeking, like if you are peeking and you're hitting some shots, even if it's low damage, like, and they didn't hit you at all, and you got a little bit of chip damage on that poke while not being poked, that's going to really help. So peeking is a big one. You got to know how to peek fire, okay? And that's why it's really important to learn how to do that in the shooting range. Grenades are also really good. Sometimes I'll throw a zone grenade or a frag grenade in the path that my enemy's charging me, on, just so I can relieve a little bit of pressure and just run away. Or, put pressure on them to charge them, whatever. Like, grenades are a good way to make the enemy rethink what they're doing and kind of give you a few seconds to breathe and do what you got to do. Okay, grenades buy time. Don't expect to kill them with it unless you're laying down like 2 to 4 grenades or anything like that. But it's, sometimes I'll throw one zone or frag just to make them rethink, what they're doing. And it better be a smart one, because if I throw it in the open that's not anywhere near them, they're going to think, okay, this person's an idiot, and they're going to charge even harder, okay? So, it's got to be effective whenever you're doing anything. Efficient, I should say. So how to stop their charge? Well, there's really 2 ways. Hurt them or on the charge, or break their build. That's number 1. And then number 2 is trap them, okay? Number 1 sounds obvious, but it's actually not that easy to do, because build really muddies the water. It complicates this issue, because you cannot, if you are one-on-one, mark my words very carefully, if you are one-on-one against an excellent builder, someone who's building at the best they can possibly do pretty much for this game almost, you cannot destroy their build fast enough while they are building and charging you. Did you hear that right? So that means if someone who knows what they're doing is charging you, spamming build, you can't break the build fast enough while having your gun full of ammo to kill them when they finally come in the open to kill you when they have a full clip. You just can't break the build fast unless you got like an M60 and they're far away or something, okay? But it's very difficult one-on-one. So thankfully this is a team game, okay? So this is something that your team probably does intuitively, or maybe it's not doing and should do, okay? So what I call this is kind of the triangle or line formation, okay? I've been telling my team ever since we started kind of squads, tourneys, to have our anchor in the back. We have a position called the anchor, which is kind of like the safety in football, okay? This person's responsible for covering the other two, spotting, and just, supplying the other two with ammunition, weapons they need, build. So that person's the anchor, okay? And then the other two are the front man, whatever we want to call it, okay? And so this formation has really helped out my team a lot, okay? This is how we roll, straight out. So now, what I was telling you before, if it's one charger, it becomes a lot easier when you have a squad, okay? Because that one charger cannot build fast enough to outweigh two people firing or spraying their build. And now when I'm saying spraying their build, I'm assuming you're using the best weapons to shoot build, like AK, P90, or an M60, right? M60 clearly is the best of breaking these builds, right? And one good M60 player can almost stop one person charging, okay? Almost. So two people spraying an enemy's build will essentially almost always stop them in their tracks. Almost. If the people are aiming at the right walls, right? There's still ways around this. There's no all or none in this kind of situation. But generally, if two people are spraying one enemy while that person's trying to charge or build, they're not going to be able to build fast enough to outweigh that fire, okay? So that's how you can stop an enemy charging. One enemy. Having two people spray the build. That's why one of my key commands, I don't want to say commands, but key commands that I do, tell my squad mates is when I say spray, I want you to spray the damn build. Drop everything you're doing, spray the damn build. Pull out your rapid fire weapon and start shooting the build, okay? And that whenever I play with new people, I tell them you don't really have to know much on this, when you play with me. Just if I say rotate, rotate. But if I say spray the build, drop everything you're doing and start spraying build, because that is an opportune time. We don't have long because that person's either going to charge us or get to a nice position. We have to spray that build quickly to stop them, right? So that is a helpful command that you should probably have in your squad as well. This game is from my early ARC days with my squad a few months ago. We were up against the #1 team in purple. I actually recorded this video to give to my team privately, work on the things we needed to work on, which is putting more pressure down, okay? And so this video is a good example of that, of how we had to learn to overcome. Here's same situation, sprays in the front, and they are rushing spray, right? And they can't do this kind of shit at Diamond because they get pummeled like I pummeled them here. So check it out, like he tried to charge and he almost died, right? Like people in Diamond don't do that, because if the whole team is doing what I did right there, and not the whole team, but like 2 out of 3 of the team are doing that on the person, then the person's gonna die, right? So if you were helping me protect spray there, that guy would have been 100% dead. He only had a little bit of health left. And so we kind of screwed up there. We always need to make sure that whoever is in the front, the entire team can help at any given point the person who's in the front, whether that's me or spray. Like you have to have view of our front man and help them if they're getting pressured. Like period, without him calling it out, because he's had no time to call that out. So if you are not in the front of the battle, and this applies to all of us, ask yourself, if someone charges that person who's in the front, or any one of my teammates, can I help them immediately kill the person who's charging them, or at least get some good shots on the person who's charging them? If the answer is no, either you have to reposition, or you got to tell the person to slow down, like wait, stop. Like, I can't be the only person, for example, telling Spray to stop. Because I'm usually in a good position to cover him. But, like, when 2 people are flying at him, like, it's not enough. We need our whole team shooting at the same exact time when someone's flying in the open. Gotta capitalize on their mistakes flying in the open. Like, Diamond players don't fly in the open. They only peek, and they only fly when it's safe. So we can definitely make short work of them single-handedly. Like I never lost a one-on-one against them, but they always charged me as a group. Like they were really good about sticking together and fighting together. We need to do the same. When there are 2 or 3 enemies, the situation gets a lot more complex, and there's no one right way to do this. I would say if all 3 people are charging your one person here, your one wingman here, that person better anchor down with hard cover, better have a good DT and good skills with using a DT, anchor down in hard cover, let your other 2 people rotate on these 3 people who are charging the single person to break build and put damage and kill them, because they will most certainly be exposed if all 3 of them are charging this one person, okay? At least in some way, shape, or form. If these other 2 people are rotating and getting in positions to put some damage on them, good positions to put damage. So this person either has to anchor down behind hard cover with the DT, just put out as much damage as possible, hold tight, peek as much as possible, or get the hell out and rotate and come back in when it's safe to do so and put on damage, right? And so a lot more complicated when there's more enemies. There's no one right way to do this. Teamwork. So now we're getting to the second method, which is trapping the enemy. This video clip is from the mixed doubles tournament, the ice tier, which is the higher level. And this includes the best players in the world, duos, 2 people. And this example is of trapping an enemy. That person who's getting charged, rotating out, rotating back in after it's safe to do so. Alright, so this clip is against Clev and Abby. I throw some grenades to put a little pressure, some AK, span the build. I know it's not going to break enough build when 2 people are building. Switch to DT for some poke damage. Rotate out while building. One person charging me. Sammy puts some damage. I come back in, rotating for the kill. You can see Abby flying around. I come in. We trap this person essentially who's charging for a free kill.
Unfortunately, Clev and Abby losing their stack. Not able to capitalize on that, but moving in, Sammy again keeping Clev and Abby alive as they just continuously let each other live. Abby taking damage from that zone grenade, definitely gonna go down here.
You'll note that no one charged each other here. First off, there was so much respect, and these are some of the best players in the world. You have Clev and Slick skills here. Even after one player's down, Slick skills came in and he bailed.
So he's gonna.
And the reason why is he did a risk assessment. He realized that another person was there, Sammy. He didn't know who it was, but he knew another person was there. He knew Clev was alone, but Clev is one of the best players in the world, and with the DT obviously, but just one of the best players in the world. Period. So he was skeptical to charge one-on-one, particularly when he knew someone else was there, right? So this game at the highest level is really all about chess, okay? And that's really why I showed this clip. If the best players in the world don't just go charging and flying at each other in a tournament game, then it's different than pubs. You have to get to this level. You really have to earn respect, and that's not easy to do, right? We're gonna end on this slide, and this slide's just a review of all the ways to exert pressure so that you can stop the enemy from trying to charge you, and helping them rethink their risk assessment, right? Their threat risk assessment. Rethink their life strategy on you. This is not an easy thing to do, okay? It takes a long time to get to this point. It's not easy when they're flying, moving around so fast, and you're just trying to keep up. So there's a lot to work on. Just like these 4 things are listed here, but they're not simple things you can just pick up and go do, right? I didn't really cover covering or suppressive fire enough, but in that one, really sometimes so if someone's behind like a hill, like hard cover hill, sometimes if you just lay down a clip on the top of the hill, like you're not even hitting the enemy, but sometimes you're just spraying covering fire, suppressing fire, which is there, and you're just laying that fire down on that rock. That'll make that person think twice about coming out. For example, if an enemy is shooting an M60 at your rock, unloading at your rock, you're not going to step out, right? Because that thing's already spun up. You throw build, you're just going to die. It's not worth it to peek out if that thing's just already spinning at its fastest rate. You're going to take some good damage. So suppressing fire is a thing, right? These things are not just easy to do. Like, I can't just tell you, do this, do that, and then you're going to be good and healthy in game. These are things you really have to work on from watching some of the other videos in this channel, for example. And really a lot of tricks and things you just have to build into your skill set. So this video will help you understand it, but it really isn't going to give you the exact know-how to do it, because at least you know how to get there now, okay? Good luck to you, and pray you don't get charged in your public games.